What if I told you that since 1947, a secret committee of 12 incredibly powerful men has been controlling the world's most explosive secret? That we are not alone. They supposedly call themselves Majestic 12, and this is the story of the documents that claim to prove they exist. The question is any of it real? Let's find out.
You know, for decades, this was just a whisper, a rumor floating around in UFO circles. The idea of a shadow government with absolute power, operating completely in the dark, holding the keys to humanity's entire future. Honestly, it sounded like something straight out of science fiction.
And then, it happened. In the winter of '84, a plain brown envelope shows up, no return address. It just lands in the mailbox of a TV producer named Jaime Shandera. And what was inside would ignite an absolute firestorm of controversy that is still burning to this day.
All right, so inside that envelope, it wasn't a letter. It wasn't a memo. It was a clue sent by someone who wanted to stay hidden, pointing to a conspiracy at the very, very highest levels of the U.S. government.
So Shandera gets this roll of film developed, and what he finds is just stunning. It's images of a document, a briefing paper dated November 18, 1952, and it's prepared for one person, President-elect Dwight D. Eisenhower. It was even marked Copy 1 of 1, his eyes only. And the stuff inside? It was completely world-shattering. The document claimed that a secret group, Majestic 12, was formed by President Truman himself. Why? Because the military had recovered not just a crashed alien saucer near Roswell, but the bodies of its extraterrestrial crew. This committee, a who's who of America's national security elite, was put in charge of managing this secret by any means necessary.
Now here's where it gets really curious. Look at the classification, top secret/magic. Researchers scoured every archive they could get their hands on, but that stamp, it appeared on 0 other official files. So what does that mean? Was this proof of some secret level of classification, a stamp so secret it was above all others, or was it a clumsy mistake by someone trying to fake a document?
As people started chasing down the paper trail of these documents, a much darker and frankly more personal story started to come out. A story that shows just how devastating the hunt for UFOs could be for a real person.
And to understand this part of the story, you have to understand a key tactic in the intelligence world: disinformation. It's basically the act of weaponizing lies to confuse, distract, and sometimes completely neutralize a target.
And in this story, the target was a man named Paul Bennewitz. He was a brilliant physicist in Albuquerque. Using his own high-tech gear, he started tracking and filming these really bizarre lights over Kirtland Air Force Base, a place known for top-secret projects. He thought he'd stumbled onto proof of aliens. He had absolutely no idea what he had really gotten himself into.
The weapon used against him was an Air Force agent named Richard C. Doty. And this is where it gets really complicated. See, Doty was one of the key sources feeding these MJ-12 documents to UFO researchers. But at the exact same time, he was systematically feeding Paul Bennewitz this toxic cocktail of lies. Crazy stories about secret alien treaties, underground bases, even mind control experiments.
And the results were just catastrophic. Bennewitz became convinced he was at the center of this vast alien conspiracy, and he just spiraled into paranoia. His life was systematically dismantled by what was essentially an official government gaslighting campaign. He lost everything: his business, his family, and in the end, his sanity.
Okay, so just when you think this story couldn't possibly get any stranger, the man who brought the MJ-12 documents to the world gets ready to take the stage and turn everything completely on its head.
William Moore was the #1 champion of the MJ-12 papers. He co-authored the book that put Roswell back on the map, and he worked tirelessly to prove these documents were the real deal. But in 1989, in front of a completely stunned audience of his own colleagues, he admitted he wasn't just a researcher.
He confessed. He said he had been recruited by U.S. intelligence, and that he had knowingly, at their direction, spread false information. And who was his target? Paul Bennewitz. So let that sink in. The lead promoter of the MJ-12 story was also an admitted participant in a government disinformation campaign. But what did it all mean? Moore himself called it a limited hangout. It's an old spy term for when you admit to a small lie to protect a much, much bigger truth.
Think of it like a magician distracting you with his left hand while the real trick is happening with his right. So, was he admitting the MJ-12 documents were fake, or was he sacrificing Paul Benowitz to protect the bigger secret that Majestic 12 was actually real?
This all leads us to the final showdown. I mean, decades of research have left us with two totally warring narratives, and honestly, the evidence for both sides is pretty compelling. So let's break it down. So, on one side you have the official story. It's all a hoax. The FBI could never verify the documents. There are weird formatting errors, like a key memo that was supposedly signed by an official who was out of the country on that date. And of course, your main source, Richard Doty, was a professional liar. But on the other side, you have the counter-argument. The nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman dedicated his life to proving these were real, arguing their details, down to the specific model of typewriter used, were just too complex for a forger. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. In a world of proven government secrecy, how do you ever tell a real secret from a fake one?
Whether it's real or not, the impact of the MJ-12 story is undeniable. The idea of a secret UFO cabal was basically immortalized into X-Files. And that core story of crash retrievals and secret programs is still echoing today. When the New York Times blew the lid off the Pentagon's modern UAP program in 2017, and when whistleblower David Grush testified before Congress in 2023 about recovering non-human biologics, they were speaking a language that Majestic 12 created decades earlier.
Which leaves us with the final, really unsettling question. The whole MJ-12 saga pulled back the curtain on real government disinformation campaigns and a long documented history of official secrecy. So after all this time, are we finally getting closer to the truth about what's really in our skies? Or are we just caught in a more sophisticated version of the exact same game?